All right, welcome all to the post-lunch events. So thanks for coming back. We know it's hard to get people in the room. Thanks for being here. We'll start off with a quick poll. My name is Mark Caselia. I am the engagement manager for the CEO Water Mandate. The CEO Water Mandate is the leading initiative for the Forward Faster Water Resilience Target. And while that poll is going up, we are asking companies, if you're a company, to answer from that perspective. If you're not a company, you're an NGO, you're a government, answer from your experience and what you see from companies. The question is, where is water in the corporate agenda? 1 being not on the agenda and 5 being a top priority. With that, we're super excited to be here to launch Forward Faster with the 5 focus areas. We are super excited, as you heard from Matt, water transcends so many of the SDGs, and we're so excited for it to be included in one of the 5 top action items. Matt mentioned so many of the SDGs that it impacts. In addition, I would add to his that water equity and water.org focus really on WASH. In addition to that, the Forward Faster Water Resilience commitment focuses also on water quantity as well as water quality, adding to those impacts on biodiversity and our other SDGs. From a business lens, it's estimated that there will be a 40% gap between available water and water demand by 2030. And new recent data from WRI suggests that there will be 31% of our global GDP will be in highly exposed water-stressed basins by 2050. So it's essential that we move water up the corporate agenda. Forward Faster challenges companies to take ambitious, credible action and communicate their progress. What we're really excited about Forward Faster is that you'll be joining 240 plus companies that have already committed to the CEO Water Mandate and the Water Resilience Coalition, which is the leadership arm of the CEO Water Mandate. These companies, along with our vast partner network and NGOs and governments, have collaborated to already develop and facilitate innovative and leading-edge thinking, as well as scale responsible practice and drive basin resilience, and finally raise the profile of water. So when a company joins Forward Faster in the water resilience movement, you're not alone. You're with quite a few companies, and we'll have a few of those speak together. So building water resilience at your organization can improve business and performance and accelerate growth. The target for water resilience under Forward Faster is a couple things. It's to build water resilience across global operations, within the supply chain, and finally, to achieve collective positive water impact in at least 100 prioritized basins. We're very excited to launch the 100 prioritized basins. It has been a collaborative effort with many of our NGOs and a number of companies to prioritize those basins. So in terms of a company, taking ambitious action in this area will help you reduce business risk, one of our main reasons that companies join the CEO Water Mandate and work on water. You'll enhance your reputation with your communities where you operate and your investors. And you'll profoundly impact the ability of the UN to reach the human right to water and sanitation. So during this session, we'll have 2 panels to really kind of bring light to what does working on water resilience look like. But before we do that, please let me introduce Sonia Timna. She is the Director of Global Sustainability from Heineken, from the Heineken Company. Heineken, if you're not familiar with that company, is an international brewing company founded in 1864 with over 200 breweries in 70 countries, selling beer, wine, spirits, and non-alcoholic drinks across 192 countries. Heineken is a member of the Water Resilience Coalition, the leadership arm of the CEO Water Mandate, and Forward Faster. The Water Resilience Coalition members have committed to some of the highest ambitions and action on water, including achieving net positive water impact in water-stressed basins, building water resiliency across their value chains, and advancing global leadership on water. With that, let me please welcome Sonia.
Thank you very much, Mark. As you would have heard from Mark, some of the data and statistics on water are pretty stark. Today, 2.3 billion people live in water-stressed areas across the world, and we know it's going to get worse. This means water, as you've heard, is a big issue for us as business. And for us in Heineken, if you have no water, you have no beer. And we know that it really affects the communities around which we operate, across our value chains, across agriculture, but also the communities around our breweries as well. So back in 1864, when Gerard Heineken bought his first brewery in Amsterdam, which at that time was in the outskirts of the city, he knew that the business would not thrive if the community around us didn't thrive as well. Which is why access to water was a key plank of his business strategy, both for the brewery, but also for the community. Fast forward, and this is even more relevant today. We believe there's much for us to do collectively. Individually, we're not going to move the needle. We won't get the pace and the level of impact that we need globally. This is why we are delighted to be part of the UN Global Compact's Forward Faster initiative, because we truly believe that the private sector, when we come together, can make a huge impact on some of the critical issues that we need to address by 2030. As Heineken, we've signed up to 4 areas: gender equality, living wage, climate action, and water resilience. And it's this last one that I'm going to double click on in a bit more detail. We launched our sustainability strategy, the updated version, back in 2021. We call it Brew a Better World. And it looks at what we want to achieve to 2030 and beyond across 3 pillars: environment, social, and responsible consumption. Not surprisingly, water is a key cornerstone of our environmental pillar. But for us, we don't see it in a box. We see it as a cross-cutting issue that touches carbon, circularity, biodiversity, and critically, the livelihoods and well-being of the people in our business and our value chain. As with many of the other companies in this room, we have a number of targets in the water space. Yes, we have water efficiency that looks at the impact we want to make in our operations. However, for long-term impact, we go much broader. We have a target to be water positive in those sites in water-stressed areas by 2030. That's giving back more water than we use in our products, water positive. And this is where the alignment comes with a Forward Faster goal to be water positive in 100 critical basins by 2030 across the 3 lenses that Mark mentioned before: water quality, quantity, and wash. We started water balancing in 27 out of the 32 water-stressed sites that we had. And as at the end of last year, we were 29% fully water balanced across all the sites. But what action do we have that really delivers those results? What does that look like? We really believe that partnership is the key. And there are different models that we've employed depending on local context and community needs. So everything from working with farmers in Egypt, a river rehabilitation program in Malaysia, large-scale reforestation with WWF in Vietnam. For me, what we've learned through all of this is collective action is really what's needed to drive impact at scale. I'm going to try and give you one example to try and bring this to life to see how does that manifest itself. So in Indonesia, we found that in one of the areas around one of our critical breweries, the local environment had degraded quite substantially because of population growth and industrialization. Only 39% of the original forest was left standing in the watershed. And this was leading to significant issues around soil erosion, flooding, water quality. So back in 2014, we started a reforestation program with the local community. And that was kind of step 1. And in 2016, with UNIDO, we conducted a stakeholder engagement exercise to see what could the next evolution look like. And with the local NGO and the community, we expanded it from reforestation to bamboo cultivation. This was great because, surprisingly, it deterred illegal logging, which wasn't one of the expected benefits. It also provided an income stream, which was one of the expected benefits. But we found this wasn't enough. We had to go much wider to cover the breadth of the watershed. Which is why, in 2021, we started a collective action program working with Coca-Cola, Danone, Nestle, L'Oreal, Unilever. And it was coordinated by the Global Water Partnership Southeast Asia, Conservancy Alam Nusantara, and Alliance for Water Stewardship Indonesia. And this was all about the long-term protection of the Brantas and Sisadan watersheds. What I love about it is it had the critical elements of reforestation, but it had the foundations of what did you need to do for the long-term sustainability of the area. So critical building blocks like capacity building, data and analysis, communication, How do you look at the program in a way that's really going to drive water positivity by 2030? The initial results are good. So we managed to reforest 50 hectares, and that's going to extend to 120 hectares over time. However, one of the key elements for me is really building the trust with the local community to make sure that what was happening met their needs as well. Now, this is one example, and there's more in our network, but we know that we need to do so much more. And this will only happen through radical collaboration with companies, NGOs, academia, government, and the local community. And we've seen this resonate in many, many geographies around the world. We also know we don't have all the answers, but we really want to be part of the solution and to work with others to figure out how do we make this happen. We are moving forward faster and look forward to working with many of you in this room and beyond to do the same, to meet the goal of being water positive in 100 water basins by 2030. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Sonia. We're super excited to have Heineken as one of the leading members of the WRC. And so excited about the goals that you all have and wish you the best in achieving those collaboratively with us and others. With that, I just want to check on the first poll. If you guys have a chance to get that up, if we haven't seen that yet, that'd be great. I wasn't quite paying attention. But if that could go up at some point, where the results would be great. Oh, thank you so much. So cool. Not surprising, right? We see a room where the audience here probably is a little biased here, but it's so great to see that water is moving up the corporate agenda for sure, not only in this room, but beyond. With that, we'll welcome the first panel. So I'll introduce them as they come up. But Adam, Sarah, and Rubens, if you would join us, that'd be fantastic. Great. Rubens Filo is the Water and Oceans Manager for the Global Compact Network Brazil. Adam Gordon is the Executive Director of the Global Compact USA. And Sarah Dobseverge is the Managing Director of Partnerships for WaterAid America. Thank you all for joining us. So in this panel, we wanted to break it down that water, although we have this global ambition of, positive water impact in 100 basins, it happens at a local level. And so what we're interested in hearing from this panel is, what does that look like? And so if, Adam, I could kick it off to you as with the first couple questions, that'd be fantastic. So Adam, the UNGC USA is growing quick. I know staff-wise huge and numbers of companies very dramatically. So what does water play in this growth strategy as you kind of move forward?
Thanks for the question, and you're right. We're growing rapidly. We are one of the fastest growing local networks in the entire UN Global Compact. We now have over 1,100 participants across the 50 states of the U.S., and that represents over $5 trillion in combined revenues. And proudly, it's a good number. It could be better, but 18% of U.S. GDP. So we are growing. We have more to grow still. And we're strengthening our ties with government to obtain more support and information for our participants. Just last week, many of you probably read the news, the U.S. ambassador to the UN went to the Security Council, not a place you normally hear people talking about companies, addressed the Security Council and strongly urged the public sector to harness the expertise of the private sector to better reach the SDGs. And this is quite notable and I think very important coming from the U.S. Water protection and preservation is becoming an urgent matter globally, but particularly here in the U.S. And as our population grows and our cities are expanding, putting an immense strain on our natural resources. We can look just at the southwest of the U.S. right now, where we're seeing our agricultural centers, our growing populations really challenge our water resources in a meaningful way. And the situation is dire, and it's forcing both business and government to act. So our own network survey, it's not as positive as the survey in this room, but I'm still quite proud of it. Our survey revealed that 10% of our participants, of our participating companies, believe that SDG 6, water, is the highest priority for their company. And that's quite notable, in my opinion. And further, 58 U.S. companies are part of the CEO Water Mandate, which we're very proud of. And many of them have joined just in the past 3 years. It's something we're very proud of and we're pushing quite a bit. We're pleased to see an increase in interest in water from U.S. companies, and we're here to support it throughout the way.
Great, thanks, Adam. One follow-up for you. Sonia mentioned that a company can't do it by themselves, right? That it's going to take collective action.
Yep.
So what do you think the UNGC USA's role is in facilitating collective action? And just to recognize the 10 basins that have been prioritized are in the U.S.
Yeah, it's not small, and we're grateful for that prioritization, although we wish maybe we didn't need it.
Fair enough.
But look, ultimately, Network USA, and much like the Global Compact as a whole, serves as a bridge connecting the private sector and the international community. And our focus is particularly on the U.S. private sector. Our unique position really grants us the ability to have valuable insights to support our critical stakeholders. And that includes, visibility into the global sustainability agenda, sustainability efforts in the U.S., and other countries' private sectors as well. We're developing more and more programming that aligns with the CEO Water Mandate, and we're very pleased about that. We really want to encourage more U.S. companies to embrace the global sustainability agenda, particularly around water. And we'll also provide the thought pieces for companies to use when building their water stewardship work. And I'm very pleased to announce here today that we are going to be releasing a special report, a special white paper on water in partnership with the Pacific Institute CEO Water Mandate and series, which will be launching in Dubai at COP28. If climate change is the shark, I think many of us have heard this, then water is that shark's teeth. And so we think it is really important that we launch this critical white paper on water stewardship from the U.S. private sector in COP in Dubai to really bring these topics together. That is our primary focus for Dubai. So if anyone's interested in learning more, you could reach out to myself or our head of programming, Claudia Herbert-Culver, here in the front in the beautiful red fringe, if you'd like to get more involved. But, we really see this as a focus for us moving forward.
Okay, thanks, Adam. We're looking forward to it for sure. And I think we need to do some more work to highlight what companies are doing so people can kind of envision what does this actually look like in practice. Sarah, we're going to turn it over to you from WaterAid as a global organization. Kind of tell us a little bit about what does local engagement look like and how do you do this effectively?
Thank you so much. So WaterAid is an international nonprofit. We're the largest and oldest organization working and focused on water, sanitation, and hygiene in over 30 countries. And so we're really working, I can't see you because of the blinding lights here, but we work with many of you, your sustainability teams, on bringing the global goals and targets to the local level. The main thing I want to focus on is that it eliminates the communication gaps. So while we might be speaking with HQ here in the U.S., and I'm also based here in the U.S., our country teams will also work with the business units in country. And I'll tell you an example later of how we do that in India. But in many of the countries where we work, where companies have operations there, we're trying to find ways to bring these global ambitions, which are very, very ambitious. We're trying to localize them and make them work. The main thing that's important to emphasize about local operations is that they're the ones who can say whether a global ambition is feasible on the ground. Can it actually become a reality, or is it just a global ambition? And we're here to say that it can become a reality, but it has to be informed by local knowledge, local networks, government participation, and the participation of implementers.
Sounds great. And Sarah, just to add on to that, give us some context, provide an example. We know you've been implementing projects globally, selling them to headquarters here in the US or Europe or wherever those companies are based. Tell us a little bit about one of those.
So with this in this space, I'd really like to share an example of a collective action program that we are working on alongside the Water Resilience Coalition. This is the Women and Water Collaborative. It's the first collective action program of its kind that focuses only on wash access. It's an initiative that bridges global goals and ambitions with the reality on the ground, as I mentioned before. What is the vision? Mark just spoke about it, 100 basins and 300 million people. But the reality is that company operations don't always perfectly align with where the need is greatest, and by extension, where the impact will be most significant. Having local inputs helps manage risks, as local teams know how to make the vision a reality on the ground, and whether and if that vision is feasible. At the same time, local business programs can roll up and be part of global strategies and targets, which ultimately then inform the global goals and targets. And really for us, what's so amazing about the work that we do when we do work with sustainability teams is that we both have teams on the ground. And so our team, in this instance in India, where this program is being rolled out, they have the expertise, they know the approach, they know the local context, they know the region's unique water needs, and they have close, trusted relationships that enable coordination with local government at the local and national levels, local implementers, and other key stakeholders on the ground. And last, but definitely not least, they have relationships with the community members themselves, and those are the people that we're all whose lives we're looking to improve.
Great, thanks, Sarah. Rubens, I'll go to you. Your work aligns very much with what Sarah's been saying around how we involve the local community, address the local problem. Can you tell us a little bit about what you all have been doing in Brazil?
Sure. Thank you very much for having me here. Brazil, the local network in Brazil, we have more than 2,000 participants. We're one of the largest local networks of the Global Compact as well. But as Adam has said, what is the saddest thing is 85% of the companies that we reach in a survey, they do not related the water risk. So this is very, very concerning. Brazil is home of 28% of the world's fresh water. Actually, specifically speaking, the Amazon region is home of the 20% of the world's fresh water. We are facing a severe climate crisis right now. As we speak, in Brazil, we are facing now, this hour, 35 degrees Celsius is a winter day. So apart from that, we have huge problems in terms of sanitation as well. So 90 million % of our population suffers without access to sanitation, and 35% of our population do not have access to clean drinking water. So our purpose, our goal there is so strong. We need to encourage companies. So last year, we launched our Moving Forward Faster in Brazil, called the Plus Water Movement. So we had more than 35 companies joining us in this movement to tackle and to pursue specific goals in terms of improving sanitation and water resilience as well. Apart from that, 6 out of the 100 basins are located in Brazil as well. So we do have some problems with water stressed basins. So what we are doing now is we are facilitating some contact with NGOs and companies to go for more projects, collective projects to tackle those problems in Brazil. Fortunately, we have a very good experience with the Water Resilience Coalition, but I'll speak about it later.
That sounds great. Ruben, final question for you. Let's see. Can you tell us about, well, let's get into it, right? So how has the partnership been with the Water Resilience Coalition?
That's why I was talking about this later. Last year as well, we launched the Brazil chapter of the Water Resilience Coalition. So The PCJ Basin is a base home to 6 million people in Brazil, and it produces 7% of our GDP. During 2013, 2015, this basin was a severe impact because of a drought. So we went through 2 years of a severe drought in Brazil. So what we did together with the Water Resilience Coalition and the Nature Conservancy was to launch this Brazilian chapter for this program. One of the main purposes is to restore 100,000 hectares in the PCJ Basin. So we are working with the AB InBev, for example. We are working with more companies in this part of Brazil. It's very good to stress out that this basin is located in the countryside of the São Paulo state, one of the richest state of Brazil. So what we need to do now is to assure that those water, the availability of water will not be negatively impacted by the drought that we are facing in Brazil right now. So I think we are in a good way right now.
Yeah, absolutely. No, thanks for your partnership on that. And obviously, I want to first say thank you to the panel. It's required to have this local connection. When we think about water stress, it's showing up in basins that we never thought. I mean, especially in areas of Europe, the Danube, the Rhine, where all of a sudden we're seeing these issues that were never thought of as a water stressed area. So with that, can I thank the panel and appreciate you guys for being here. So as we talk about water stress, right, understanding the local context is hugely important. So we have one quick question about, as a poll around this. And this relates to when you have a corporate water strategy, does your company have water targets based on the actual context of the basin? I'll leave that up for a second as we welcome our next panel. All right, our next panel that's coming to the stage, Alexandra Causey. She is the Water Partnership Leader for Curita Industries and Curita America. Eliza Roberts is the Water Lead for Microsoft Corporation. And then finally, Daniel Shimei is the Global Director of Resilient Watersheds at the Nature Conservancy. Thank you for joining us. So in this one, we're going to talk about the need for collective action and kind of what is being built and what structures and foundations are being built to enable us to implement collective action. So I'll ask a few questions of our panel and look forward to hearing your responses. Alexandra, can we start with you?
No problem.
That sounds good. So Curita has kind of pushed us for this better data and digitization to support companies in making this water stewardship journey and engaging in collective action and ultimately achieving NPWI. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, thank you, Mark. As more companies recognize the significance of incorporating attainable and impactful goals into their sustainability and materiality initiatives, it is imperative to emphasize both a familiarity and adherence to global guidance and standards. But merely possessing knowledge of these guidance and standards marks just the inception of this journey. Equally essential components include operationalization, monitoring, and reporting phases. This is where the significance of accurate data and digitization truly emerges. It is incumbent upon us to comprehensively grasp the prevailing conditions and shared water-related issues within the areas our operations are located. This understanding forms the foundation that we can establish baselines, evaluate individual impacts, and continually assess outcomes of our efforts over prolonged periods. And these actions have the direct potential to result in net positive water impact. Furthermore, this process is scalable. It can extend beyond individual operating sites to encompass broader collective action initiatives. And this brings us to the next crucial point of not only possessing accurate data and digitization capabilities, but centralizing and facilitating access to this information through platforms like the Water Action Hub.
Great. So you guys have been a supporter of the Water Action Hub. You kind of kicked it off here. Tell us a little bit about what it is, why you use it, and how you use it.
We have observed the Water Action Hub in its initial role as a platform connecting companies and organizations to global projects. And we have seen its transformation into a comprehensive resource. It now provides companies self-assessment questionnaires, tools, and other resources to support their water stewardship journey. Pardon. While we initially appreciated its role and used it to search for collaborative efforts, we recognize the usefulness of the tool depended on the quality and consistency of information being inputted. Understandably, some companies and organizations were not keeping their information up to date or refraining from entering project details altogether. So we say, what better way to encourage companies to utilize this valuable tool than providing additional functions? And as I mentioned earlier, that's precisely what the Water Action Hub has evolved into and why we at Creta support it. As we continue our collective action in the 100 priority basins, we eagerly anticipate access to basin diagnostics, real-time information, insight into other companies' activities, and eventually a tool for tracking and monitoring net positive water impact. I believe we share the same ambition for the Water Action Hub to become the ultimate one-stop shop for water stewardship activities.
Can I pull on you for one more question? As a new company kind of starting their water stewardship journey, what kind of efficiencies does working through the Water Action Hub kind of build for a company?
As I had mentioned, how we truly appreciated its initial role connecting companies, that we searched for projects through the Water Action Hub. And with the different functions, we were able to connect directly with other companies. Some companies who were fellow WRC members and others who were not. So we were so appreciative of that as a resource to connect. And as it's continued to evolve, that we, as I mentioned, are eagerly anticipating using it for our tracking and monitoring of our collective action efforts.
Thank you. Eliza, can we shift to you? Great. So Microsoft has been in the water world for quite a bit, kind of advancing your goals. Can you tell us a little bit about what your goals are and maybe some of how are the different mechanisms that you're using to achieve those goals?
Absolutely. First, I'm going to go off script for a second because I feel like it's that time in the afternoon when everybody gets really tired. And so you thought that you got to just sit here and listen, but I'm actually going to ask a quiz question. And I don't know if I have a prize, but whoever answers, I'll be very impressed. So what is the creature on this planet that can live the longest without water? And feel free to just shout it out. You don't need to raise your hand. A what? A tortoise? Any other guesses? A cockroach. Ooh, good guess, especially in New York City, yeah. Any other guesses? Water bear. Ooh, somebody knew the answer. So a water bear is also known as a tardigrade. It is a micro animal. And for those of you who studied biology, you probably know a lot more about it than I do, but it can live for 30 years without water. So, okay, now I will dive into my points and I will link back. I will link it back. So hopefully everybody's a little bit more awake now. So the tardigrade can live 30 years without water. There is no other person or living thing or company that can operate without water. So at Microsoft, we need water. We use it to cool our data centers and to operate our buildings and campuses worldwide. We also see it as our responsibility to help protect fresh water in the areas where we operate, particularly high stress locations. And so that is what led us in 2020 to make a commitment to be water positive by 2030. This is in line with our other sustainability commitments to be carbon negative by 2030, zero waste, and to protect ecosystems. We've been on a long journey, but only for a few years. and we have a lot of work ahead of us. But I'll just share a little bit more about what water positive means to us and a few points of progress, and then I'll pass it back to you.
That sounds great.
So, water positive for us has 5 core pillars. The first is to reduce water use intensity across our global operations. The second is to replenish or return more water that we consume across our global operations, but with a focus on high-stress priority locations where we operate. The third is to increase access to water and sanitation services to people across the globe. Fourth is to drive innovation and scale water solutions, which is a big part of what I'll talk about shortly. And the fifth is to advocate for meaningful water policy. So a few stats on progress. We have about 50 replenishment projects alone in our portfolio. And last year doubled our impact, signing more contracts and volume for those projects last year than we had in any prior years. We have replenished, well, let me rewind, not replenished. We have contracted for 15.6 million meters cubed of volumetric water benefit. Sounds like a large number, but what does that mean? We're in New York, so that's around 12 Yankee stadiums filled to the top with water. But we still have a lot of work ahead of us. And we've also made progress on our access goal. We have provided more than 1.5 million people with access to water and sanitation services, which is the goal that we set in 2020. But we're really just getting started. So I'll stop there, Mark.
I got another question for you.
Okay.
Can you talk about, so historically, water's been funded through CapEx and maybe some philanthropy. Yep. Talk about like other funding mechanisms that you're getting to save and replenish these quantities of water wet.
Sure. So there's a few different, I'll give 2 different examples. So first of all, we have a water fee. We charge 2 business groups, and we leverage the money from that fee, which is paid in based on the portion of water that business groups use. And that is used to fund our replenishment and access work. And then we also have a climate innovation fund, which is a $1 billion fund that provides funding to startups and technologies, both on the climate side and water side. So we use both of those funding mechanisms to fund key projects. So the 2 examples I'll share. One is we invest directly in startups through our replenishment portfolio. And the other is we invest equity in companies through the Climate Innovation Fund. So for investing directly in companies, there's a company called Fido. Well, let me rewind. 30% of the water that runs through our pipes every day, global average, is lost to leakage. I think many of you in this room know a lot about water and probably know that stat. And yet the ways that we track that are incredibly archaic. Things like listening sticks and sniffer dogs, and they're not particularly effective in identifying the leaks. So we built a project with Fido, which is a company that uses AI to not just identify those leaks, but to size those leaks so that municipalities can focus in on repairing the largest leaks, where the more action is needed sooner. So we've got a project with Fido that falls under replenishment in London, and then we've got another one in Phoenix, Arizona, which pulls from the Colorado River Basin. And so that's an example of the direct investment. And we're really excited about innovative approaches like that we can help to scale, and also then invite others to join us, because no one company can really do it alone. And the other example is equity. So through our Climate Innovation Fund, we can invest equity in companies. And so we have a partnership with Water Equity that stems from our long-term partnership with water.org to support their water and climate resilience strategy. And that strategy will, for those of you who are familiar with water.org, they provide microloans to communities to install pipes, toilets, etc. This strategy, it builds off of that and will provide financing for big infrastructure projects in marginalized communities in Southeast Asia, Sub-Saharan Africa, and Latin America. So a few quick examples of what that means. Think about a project in Indonesia or a utility in Indonesia that is not able to treat wastewater. So globally, I'm sure many of you know this stat, 80% of wastewater waste is returned to the system untreated. So if Water Equity can provide a loan to a water utility to treat wastewater, and that can have a huge impact, not just on the surrounding environment, but also on people by improving water quality. Another example is similar to the leak detection example that I shared, providing funding loans to utilities and project partners to identify and repair leaks in systems. So those are just two examples of how we're thinking about the innovative financing approach. I'll just note that this is a big part of how we're thinking about water solutions and innovation globally, and we're looking for more projects along these lines. And we're also looking to share our knowledge and bring others along to be a part of these projects. So if you have any questions about them and you have ideas about others, please come find me. And thank you. And thank you so much to CEO Water Mandate for hosting this session. I was supposed to start with that.
Thanks, Eliza. Yeah, appreciate it. Daniel, will you wrap us up? We're going to talk one more thing around, give us an idea of the work the TNC is doing around water funds and what you're trying to move forward there and how companies can participate in those.
Yeah, sure. Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name's Daniel Shemy with the Nature Conservancy. We might be partners of yours, certainly partners with the people on this panel. And I think probably my most relevant remarks for corporate audience is around what a watershed investment program looks like and how you might interact with those. As we've heard in all the remarks today, solving water resource challenges is kind of unilateral action is inadequate. And so a watershed investment program, or a water fund is an example of that, basically is a vehicle to group collective investment by private sector, public sector, large irrigators, industrial water users, all to invest jointly in a shared goal in restoring a basin. And that also means kind of working very closely with the upstream communities that call those basins home. So there's a big livelihood element to this. And after all, we're talking about restoration. There's also a carbon element. So it's kind of a water story, a livelihood story, and a climate story all wrapped into one. The Conservancy has been involved in the establishment and operation of about 50 water funds around the world over the last 20 plus years. We've got a lot of experience in this regard, and we've always worked kind of hand in glove with the private sector in setting these up. Maybe most relevant, maybe I'll give you an example also as I kind of talk you through some of those steps that you might be, if you're kind of watershed investment curious. The first step would be certainly around what we consider like the pre-feasibility. Each of those programs are quite unique, but there are these common steps. In pre-feasibility, you're looking for, above all, is there really a role for nature-based solutions or nature to restore water resources? Is there that match? Sometimes the answer is more regulatory or the enforcement of mining regulations. But if there isn't a meaningful role in terms of land use or land cover restoration, that can return water to the system or improve water quality. The other thing you're really looking for is timing. You can spend a lot of time in any of these 100 basins spinning your wheels, but is there actually stakeholder appetite to start changing from business as usual? If you can pass that stage, you get into what we call feasibility of the business case. You're trying to really put out a credible package of investments into a watershed that can return a meaningful return. Sao Paulo is one of our flagship programs. We estimate and have been working on this since the drought in 2015, 2014. Incidentally, that drought was the very thing that catalyzed a lot of that interest, right? So often the thing that you're looking for in that pre-feasibility stage is something that might get everyone a little bit nervous or a little bit excited to start thinking differently about water. Now, restoring the watershed in the Catarera system, a lot of that's degraded Atlantic forest, would return about 33% of additional water supply during drought periods, so when you need water the most. But it's expensive. I'm talking about 32,000 hectares of restoration. And so, but putting that number out, the business case, the return, including carbon credits, you're looking at about a 1.5 return on investment for water users. Now, unfortunately, that return on investment is not singular to any individual user, thus the need for that kind of collective vehicle for investment amongst water users. After that, you into what we call design, which is really the governance question. Setting up that in Sao Paulo, there's a couple enabling conditions. For example, there's already a watershed committee. Now, that watershed committee focuses most of its energy around gray infrastructure, and so really much of the design of the fund has been in working with the regulator, Sabespi, the main utility, and the partnership of private sector partners to add a nature-based solutions tariff or fee that can fund the scale of conservation required. And then finally, operations, where all the work ends up happening. And the one thing to know about watershed investment programs is they are incredibly labor intensive. And so you may actually be talking about building a workforce of extension workers, actually to go reach out to farmers, change practices, things like that. But that same workforce has a double-edged sword, right? It also means that there's a lot of employment benefits. When you think about the political economy of doing these programs, it actually may be that your government counterpart, your mayors, your governors, they're just as attracted about this program for those employment and livelihood benefits. So a couple different directions there, and happy, of course, to tell you guys more about it another time.
Thank you to our panel. Really appreciate it. If you guys walk away with anything from hearing our two panels, is that joining Forward Faster Water Resilience, you join great company with expertise and a very deep ecosystem of partners. With that, Michael, I'd love to thank you to our panel. Appreciate it. Michael, if I could ask you to come up and close our session, that'd be fantastic. Michael Alexander is the Global Head of Environment at Diageo. Diageo is a global leader in beverage alcohol with over 200 brands sold in more than 180 companies at 132 sites. With that, Michael?
Thank you. Thank you. Well, thank you for everybody for contributing what's been a pretty kind of wide-ranging session, and some people in the room will be new to this, some will be old hacks, some will be kind of in between. So I'm just going to make a final few comments there to try and kind of put it a little bit together and give a little bit of perspective from ourselves. So Diageo is a global alcohol beverage company with brands like Smirnoff, Guinness, Johnny Walker, Bailey's, Crown Royal. Crown Royal was a big one down here, Bullet Bourbon, and many other brands. So we take this obviously very seriously, like you've heard from other companies. To bring that to life, about 30% of our volume is made in water-stressed countries around the world. So that might be Sub-Saharan Africa, India, Latin America. So 30% of our volume is made in water-stressed countries. And that's a real strong business case. So if I bring that to life, what the business case is the volume. So what is the risk? The risk is basically climate, okay? So if we're viewing this through our lens of risk and risk management in our business, and the biggest risk we have, or biggest climate risk we have in the world at the moment is water in those water-stressed areas. And what's the solution? So the solution, we have to do the right thing in our operations. We've heard that. We have to be water efficient. We have to discharge water safely. We have to make sure that we're doing the right thing across our operations, applying certifications and ensuring that we're very much leading in terms of our operations. But that won't in any way mitigate our climate risk, because a climate risk, a water risk, locally is a shared risk. So what's the answer? The answer is collective action. You've heard about that. You've heard about that this afternoon. A great kind of summary of different types of collective actions with different partners, whether it's WaterAid or TNC, when the corporates engaging with those companies and those organizations to instigate collective action. And I think that's the key to this initiative, Forward Faster, is collective action in these 100 basins. So if we wind that back, at Diageo, sitting in a water-stressed area, let's take Kenya. So let's take an example, and in fact it's a collaboration with a TNC water fund in the Upper Tana, which is to the north of Nairobi, and we have a big brewery in Nairobi, and we have a significant water risk there. The boreholes are running out, the population's growing, the demand's increasing, the supply is decreasing. So what do we do to mitigate that climate risk in that catchment? We work through the fund to try and understand what the systemic issues in the catchment upstream, many hundreds of kilometers away from our site, and where our water is being drawn from, and how we can work with farmers through the water fund with other people to address the systemic risks in them. Some of those aren't our farmers. They're not supplying us with crops, but they impact us and our climate risk because they are using water or they need to use water, and we're going to try and help them use water more responsibly and to build their climate resilience. And that comes with a lot more than just climate resilience. It comes with economic empowerment. It comes with often education for children who were previously fetching water. It comes with productivity, with well-being. So water's just a kind of entry point, if you like, to unlocking so many more benefits from a project like that and from an initiative like that. And it's those type of initiatives that will help us mitigate our climate risk. And that's why we are committed to the Water Resilience Coalition, the 100 Basins, to the Forward Faster initiative, because we want to mitigate our climate risk by working with others. We recognize it's that shared risk in our catchments. And if I was to summarize in terms of what the collective action is really helping us doing is in that climate adaptation, but in terms of the Water Resilience Coalition, this is pulling it all together into a coordinated effort. We've long discussed this for those old hacks around, that we haven't been collaborating enough, we haven't been coordinating our efforts enough, we haven't been looking for those sweet spots where we can work together. And this is what the 100 Basin Initiative does. It launched in March at the UN Water Conference here in New York. And it really does push us as corporates and as NGOs and others to work better together, focusing on the most at-risk catchments around the world, one of which is the Upper Tana, but of course there are 99 others and many, many more. So what I would encourage those that haven't already done so is to really look clearly about the Forward Faster initiative, look at the Water Resilience Coalition's 100 Basin initiative, and understand your own climate risk and understand what benefit you can get from participating in this. Because for us, there is a huge benefit, and for the many members there are now that have signed up, they recognize that benefit of collaborating, of working together, of coordinating it, both in terms of data, tools, technical solutions, whatever it might be. The solutions are there. We've heard that this morning already. What we need to do is work together better around water basins around the world to really impact beneficially locally. So in summary, this afternoon session, I've heard a lot about ambition. We're all ambitious around the 100 basins, about the Forward Faster initiative. I've also heard a lot about action, right? And I've heard an awful lot about collaboration. So the three words to remember: ambition, action, collaboration. Join Forward Faster. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. I couldn't have summarized it better. Thank you, Michael. And a quick thank you to all of our speakers. Appreciate them being there. Thank you so much.